Survivor Specialist Phil and Alexa are back with our episode 9 recap of Survivor Extinction.
I thought it was episode 8. I put 8 and we talked about 8. So
I normally am the one who makes the link, and so I don't have the title underneath now. So I normally just read off of that and didn't realize until after. But in what was promised to be one of the craziest tribals ever, it was definitely one of the longest tribals ever. We can discuss if it was one of the craziest, or if someone who didn't want to be perceived as a lunatic may have just gone a little crazy. But all that being said, it was definitely very entertaining. I was definitely into this episode, how fast it moved. I think we spent 28 minutes at Tribal Council. I mean, that counts commercial time and then everything afterwards. But I think we went to Tribal at 8:32 because Father Time intern himself told us that we went to Tribal at 8:32. That's a really early time for Survivor. And we got a lot of content once we got to Tribal Council.
Yeah, and we went to I think intern also told us when we went to the challenge. We went to the challenge at like 8:15. And my friends who like don't follow Survivor to the extent that we do, but they watch it, they're like, is this episode already over? And I was like, honestly, probably. Like the timing was super weird. And yeah, we spent 28 minutes, including commercial break at Tribal. And it ended with a near unanimous vote out.
Yeah. And so also, I think this all took place in a day. I think this entire episode, they're claiming that on night 22, Eric got voted out. And then on day 23, they went to the challenge and then Julia got voted out. So this all took place supposedly in a day, which seems crazy to me. But maybe this was going to be a double boot in one episode or something. I don't know. I mean, I can't.
Because there was no reward. I don't never know how that timing works, but there wasn't even a reward challenge, or maybe there was. It just didn't matter.
Yeah, very weird that there was no reward challenge though, because unless it's a double boot, they normally do a reward challenge. But if only a day passed by, then that tells me this may have been supposed to be a double boot, but because there was so much going on at the Tribal, they didn't want to do it. Either way, yeah, I do think that it was chaotic. This isn't like the Malcolm level, or I honestly think that the what do you call it? The Wendy boot might have even been a better Tribal Council this season. Yeah. There's been better Tribal Councils in this one, but to watch how this went down, how this went from David was going home, Kelly was getting votes, maybe, I don't even know, maybe Julia was going to get votes, to a unanimous Julia vote because Julie lost it. And I don't blame her for losing it. I'm not saying, like, she said she didn't want to be seen as a lunatic, and I'm not saying she is a lunatic. It's just this all happened because Julie lost it and was very vocal about losing it. And because Aurora and Julia, they just kept talking.
Yeah. Well, I actually think the Julie losing it almost felt like a side story to me. I feel like this kind of was what Julia did to herself, because I have a lot of very confusing notes that I took from this Tribal because I didn't really know who was saying what, but Julia just got snippy and fast. Mm-hmm. Julie was like, I am freaking out. Everybody knows that I am freaking out. Everything is not fine. Julia was fine and then kind of blew it and then yelled at, I think, Rick or Kelly for maybe blowing it. But really, it was Julia who, and then she told War Dog to shut up. Like, all that stuff just kind of culminated. I feel like that was kind of brought upon herself.
What happened was she started to lose, or at least this is what I think happened. She started to lose control. And once she started to realize that she was being called out on the plan, because Julie started talking about, I've heard this plan, and then Ron started talking, and things didn't sound like they were going for Julia. And then Rick kind of called it out and brought up a really good point. Why not just take the 7 of us and vote against the 3 of them? Which I guess was just not including Victoria in either scenario, which is kind of funny because she wasn't in the 3 and she clearly wasn't one of the 7. But so he brought that up and Julia didn't play it cool. And I think that it was because it was such a good point by Rick and because she wasn't close with Ron and Julie and knew Julie was on the cusp of losing it, that I think that made it very difficult. And as Julie was going through her entire speech and then Kelly saying, are we good? Are we good? And Julia saying, we're good. Julia should have never brought up to Jeff that Wentworth was asking if she's good, because then that immediately tells Julie and Ron, we're not good. And when Julie's on the verge of having a mental breakdown, you can't put any more fear into her mind.
I think that was the turning point. When Julia specifically said that to Jeff, I was like, okay, this must be it. This entire Tribal was like, nobody was cool during this Tribal. This entire time was like, Keith Nail saying stick to the plan 5 times. And I think the only people who, I don't even know, I can't even call it playing cool because like poor David and Kelly, everyone told them like 50 times they were going home. They've like clearly made the rounds before because they were just like, oh, cool. Thanks for the heads up. Like, good to know I might have been going home. They are my new favorite duo. Like David and Devin are nothing. Lauren and Kelly are nothing. Like David and Kelly are just so funny together and they want to get each other out, but they're kind of at this point in too deep together. And they get it. Like this is such a game to them and they both are so good at it. I love them. I could have just watched the two of them and be like, hi, how's your vote going? Like,
it was hilarious. It was hilarious because Kelly looked scared that David was sitting behind her when she first turned around. Yeah. And he was like, hey, remember me? I thought that was great. And not for nothing, I do think Rick Devens, for as bad as he was last week, was phenomenal tonight. David was great tonight, and Kelly was great tonight. I think those were the only thing. And honestly, War Dog kept it together too. And I'm just going to keep on saying how great War Dog is because War Dog kept it together so well. And it was the Lesu people who kept it together. Yeah. And you have Ron on the verge of tears the entire time. You have Julie actually crying. You have Gavin, who's probably so grateful he had that immunity necklace because he had no idea what was going on.
I know.
And one of my favorite scenes of this entire tribal council is when Rick, War Dog, and I believe it's Lauren, because David and Kelly were kind of talking. And then Ron and Julie are talking. I think I cut out.
I got your pairings. Those came through.
Yes. So all that. And then it was Ron and Julie. And the person standing right there was Victoria, and she was standing around the circle. And I think Ron or Julie says something like, I'm not with Victoria or not Victoria. And Victoria's like, hey. But like, she was trying to eavesdrop on that conversation to ensure that the vote didn't get twisted on her. And I still think that Julia goes home. These other commas aren't done. Aurora's been done, but Gavin's not done and Victoria's not done because they all voted together. And I think the ultimatum that Ron and Julie gave, which I'm sure we'll hear there's no exit press, but I'm sure we'll hear at some point is that they said, you vote for Julia and we will trust you moving forward, but you have to vote Julia tonight. And I think that's what it was. And Victoria and Gavin and Aurora all realized there was no way they were flipping the numbers back to their side. Even Kelly saying, who voted David? Like, who did vote David? Yeah.
It was only David and Kelly got one vote apiece and everyone else voted for Julia, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Aurora voted for David and Julia voted for Kelly.
Okay.
So Aurora is like very much not available.
Yeah. Because I think what it came to was this was almost a merge boot. This was almost like a Michelle Schubert or Elizabeth from last season, where it was, let's just get through this now, and Julia's expendable. And unfortunately for Julia, she was, because people already thought that she was too much of a threat to win. They thought that she was in control, which the last two episodes we saw Julia really was in control. Just early on we didn't see it. And she just needed to go because still, after all of that, the numbers are still 5-5, versus Manu. And Rick Devens still does not feel super comfortable with Manu. So there's still so much opportunity for this group to reconvene and figure it out. The best thing to do tonight is sacrifice Julia. And unfortunately she has to go, but it is kind of her fault.
Yeah. The Manus, I think it was Aurora who was trying to make the point that the Manu/Lesus were just kind of all over the place. And they were like, yeah, but at the same time, they like are making it happen. The Lesus are super dysfunctional and they all hate each other, but respect each other or are good enough at the game where they can put that away and just be like, we need to stay strong because this comic group is clearly imploding.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes from two of the leaders, or at least the leader of each side of the Lesu group, have played before. And so David had that great scene today where he said, I obviously have my problems with War Dog, but I can work with him for this one vote. And that's all you need to do. And I think that that's something that was missed here. And I think that Julie wanted more comfort than she was going to get. And I don't think she's long for this now. I think that she's in a lot of trouble every vote now because she's just proven to be too emotional, which it's going to happen. But like that's going to happen to somebody, and it just happens to be Julie.
Happen to Rick, happen to Julie.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a once a week thing.
Exactly. I just think Rick was able to bounce back a little bit better because enough people needed to pull Rick in. And he had David to bring him back in. And now Julie's closest ally is Ron, and nobody needs to pull Ron in. Like Kama can try to pull Ron in, but it looks like what War Dog, Kelly, and Lauren are trying to do is take Gavin and take Aurora and take Victoria and make that the final 6 and then vote out Devins and David and Ron and Julie, because now you know that Devins and David have nothing. They don't have an idol anymore. You know they don't have any advantages. We watched them play it together. So you know that they're not going to pull anything on you right now. And it's not a normal idol, so you might not even be thinking that they're going to rehide one, although I'm sure they will.
Sure they will, right?
I'm sure they will, probably. But like, yeah, there's so much that went on here.
Love that there was. Glad you brought that up. Love that there was only one idol play and it meant nothing. I think a lot of people were like, this is going to be advantage Geddon, and it was just a lot of crazy people yelling at each other.
Well, and I like that. I really do like that too.
Oh yeah, I mean that. I very much preferred this.
Yeah, I think I think that this just adds an element of like, this was all strategy and all human emotion, which is what Survivor started out as. And so we just got to watch people implode, and then we got to watch everybody else scramble and figure something out and put it together and make the right move ultimately. And we didn't need crazy idol plays. And honestly, I don't mind David and Rick playing their idol, because they said straight up it was supposed to be David. You can't not play an idol when you're being said it's supposed to be David, especially if you fear at all that the rest of them can put it together and say, okay, we're all vote, like 4 of us are going to vote David. And just the fear that after all of that, Julia pulls out an idol at the end of the day. Now David goes home. So I don't mind that David plays this idol here. Plus now Rick and David can like go on their merry way. It's probably better for them to have this out of their hands, although not from a game perspective, but from their own sanity perspective. Now they can just play the game instead of having to worry about this idol. Yeah,
that was a good like kind of closing of the loop with David and Rick. And I guess that's what happens when you're on the island for a week, like or not a week in between votes, well, like 3 days. But I feel like to Julie's point, 3 weeks versus 3 days versus 3 hours versus 3 minutes all mean completely different things in Survivor. So time must be like so confusing that Rick and David, or I guess Rick more, must have gotten to the point where he was like, I can't not be with David. And they voted separately last week, and they were still like, we need to put our differences ahead for the sake of our child who we love so dearly. And now it's kind of good that it's gone, because I feel like the 2 of them can get back together. But past that, I don't really know where Rick stands with like the power trio of the Lesso group. I know he had to vote with them now, but everyone just kind of voted against Julia.
Yeah, and I will say that after all of the craziness that happened this week, I think it solved nothing. I don't think
nothing.
Yeah, we are not any closer to understanding the dynamics of this tribe. We're not any closer to understanding who's with who for real. All we know for sure is that War Dog, Lauren, and Kelly, that's a trio. That's the only thing I know. Because after this week, everybody voting out Julia was to appease everybody else, to not play your cards yet, to just say, okay, sure, sounds good to me. You can trust me, Julie and Ron. And like, should Julie and Ron trust Victoria or Gavin? Absolutely not. But at least they're playing it up right now.
Yeah, because Aurora has no friends. Julie, I guess, has Ron, but probably has no friends. And kind of, but like past that, who else is Ron friends with? Yeah. And Victoria and Gavin, I can assume they're together, but that's only because they've voted together for the past 2 weeks. But I know Victoria didn't really want to do it last week, and Gavin was completely safe this week. So Gavin had nothing to lose. So, and even with the preview, like I tried to write down a single note about the preview and got nothing.
Yeah. And we were talking about, I forget who we kept comparing Victoria to in terms of winners. But
Sarah, or am I pulling that out of nowhere?
Yeah, I don't know like what we've said on the podcast. I know pre-merge we were saying Michelle, but that's just because she didn't go to tribal.
She's playing the Sarah, like, and I mean this in a very good way, like emotionless kind of game. Like she's just like cutting it loose, which I like. And I think everyone likes her. So I guess I'd compare her to Sarah in that sense.
And almost right now, and I don't know why I keep thinking of her, but it kind of reminds me of Vesepia, because Vesepia was on that sinking ship and then was able to find herself in a majority, but she was in the minority of the majority. She was always not supposed to win, and then she just ended up winning. And I feel like Victoria, I mean, I was pretty strong that she was going to win, and now I'm not so strong that she's going to win, because she's got quite an uphill climb here.
I have no idea who's going to win.
Yeah, which is great.
Love it.
But I do think that Victoria could pull like a Vesepia situation where, as the rest of the commas start to fall apart, she hangs around. Danny Boatwright, that's really who it is, hangs around long enough to get to the point where, okay, good, now they have to start eating each other, and they're going to use me as a vote, because once you get down to 6 or once you get down to 5, you start to realize where you're at. So I think Victoria is going to be the last person from comma standing, even if she doesn't win the game, just because Ron and Julie have nothing right now. And then Gavin, he's going to be seen as too much of a threat eventually. And Aurora is just in the middle of nowhere. I mean, Aurora literally is just like, I don't know what to make of Aurora. She has an extra vote.
And right, she does. And they don't even want to work with her. Like they're pretty dead set against her, which again, don't really know why. But she was like very like Aurora and Lauren were this is my favorite part about live tribals. There's always someone sitting there just like, all right, like me and all my friends. And Aurora and Lauren were like, Lauren, I feel like didn't really care because Lauren knew she was fine. And Aurora just like no one even wanted to talk to her. And I think that one of the few things I wrote down is, and this is where I thought that Julia tanked it, was when Julie said that Aurora was spilling the beans.
Yep.
When Julie had already spilled the beans. And I don't really understand what analogy Aurora was trying to make. I'll definitely have to re-listen to this because it wasn't even close to the pooping thing, which is like the quote of the week. And then Rick saying he was the poop. Like that's what we needed. We needed those two to get back together because those jokes have to be happening. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I feel like everyone is like Aurora probably made a very sound point. Everyone's like, fuck you, Aurora. Oh, sorry. Like, screw you, Aurora. Or it's like, we don't feel like listening to you anyway. So whatever you say, we're not going to agree with.
Alexa's got her hair up tonight and she's cursing like a
sailor. I know. Never wear my hair up. And I had to do it for this tribal.
If she's going to do it, she's going to just start screaming curse words. So everybody get ready.
F-bombs.
Yeah. But no, I agree with you though. Aurora, just nobody wants to work with her. And I don't know what that is. I mean, I'm sure we'll get more post game because we haven't gotten any exit press.
We have so much exit press to like dig through when the season's over.
I know. And I want to know like what everybody was feeling about Aurora in the moment, because you're right. Like I was surprised Aurora was even as close with Gavin and Julia this week as it was made out to be. Yeah. Because why?
Like no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look at what else. My notes are just super confusing. Aurora hates soccer moms. Love that.
Aurora hates soccer moms. Like, and I love that.
That's what she was aiming at.
Yeah, and what I thought was so funny about this is Aurora didn't move the entire time, and then actually stood up to say, "I can't stand soccer moms," and walk over.
I thought she was gonna leave.
It looked like it. She was just gonna go sit with the jury.
Screw this, I'm out.
Yeah, she was just gonna go sit with the jury.
Yeah. Do you have something to say? Because
I go ahead.
I could have watched the jury the whole night. They were like way more fun. Well, they obviously like watching live tribal's fun, but cutting to the jury and Jeff just like crossing his legs and being like, I'm off duty tonight. I got nothing to say here. That was fantastic.
I wonder if this is the first time Jeff's ever crossed his legs at tribal council, because it looked like it was.
In like a deliberate, sassy way, which is like, it's kind of like when you drop a bomb in a meeting and just like let everybody else talk.
Exactly. And he did it. I mean, he pulled it off perfectly. I thought that the jury, though, was I think you're right. They were so funny. I mean, this whole Aubrey's faces, but it wasn't even Aubrey's face. It was Joe's little side comments and Chris literally hiding himself. And then like
they never did any entertainment. This is huge for them.
Yeah, because Eric was saying like, "Oh my God, there's nothing to do here. It's easy to just like you can just lose yourself. There's nothing to break it up, and then you get to go to that tribal." But like even Reem didn't have anything to say. She just had that smile plastered on her face the entire time. It was amazing.
And I think tonight I might be wrong here. Reem did not talk tonight, so Reem was on a really good streak of having a confessional in every episode she is in. No longer tonight. May she rest in peace.
Yeah, that's such a bummer. But that would have been amazing if the first person voted out stays on Extinction Island the entire time and gets a confessional literally every single episode. That would have been incredible.
What else?
Extinction Island itself. Yeah, again, like you know what that told me tonight? Eric's going to be the person who comes back. That's my prediction, because we haven't heard this from anybody, and we got so much content. We didn't get this much content from Eric in the game. No. And now we're getting this much content from him on Extinction Island. And I think what he was saying and how he was saying it, yeah, I'm thinking that like Eric's going to be the person who comes back. It was just so much of like a redemption storyline that we haven't gotten, even from Aubrey. We haven't gotten it from anybody else who's out there right now.
Yeah. Aubrey, we're getting more of like the intense version where she was like, God, I'd never quit. Like, why would I do that?
Mhm.
And then Joe's like, burgers, but also wouldn't quit. Because Eric, you see him either waffling or they just like are begging for someone to say something different. Where he's like, oh, I thought about it maybe, but this he got like the kids involved, he got his family. That's always pretty indicative.
Never quit.
Never will quit. He'll be fine. But otherwise, I don't know. Extinction Island is fine. They got a stingray that was like breathing outside forever. I wish they had just killed it. I couldn't listen to them talk because I just saw that poor thing trying to breathe the whole time.
I'm surprised they showed that. I'm going to be honest. And I'm not like a PETA person.
Big
or anything
PETA
like
guy
that.
over here.
Yeah, I'm a huge PETA guy. But I am kind of surprised they showed that because that thing was still wiggling.
It was like desperate. It was like, please help me breathe.
And they showed it for a long time. I was really surprised at that. Like, it's one thing.
It kind of like as they killed it.
I know that was shocking. But
so there's some sadist that is in the editing department.
I will say though, if like that ends up bothering you and you're watching Survivor, like there's been way worse. Michael Scoopin killed a pig. That still happened. I forgot that. God, when you said Michael Scoopin verbed, I was like, that's not even the worst thing he's done ever. Well, true.
That.
Yeah. But yeah,
we both noticed that. That's how little little outside content there was on this episode.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other scene that I really want to point out was the Victoria cleaning the pot scene.
Yes, that was awkward.
That was the best. That was like probably my favorite scene of the entire season.
It felt like they were in jail, just like silently passing the rice to one another. And Kelly, like, again, this is Kelly who's played 3 times now. She's like, no one will exist near me except for Julia, who's like finger gunning me over there. Like, of course, like everyone's going to vote for Kelly. Like, come on.
I know. They were so bad at being subtle there. And it's funny that tonight we heard David and Wentworth say, I'm scared it might be me. And it was going to be David or Wentworth tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until the crazy tribal. And really, Rick Devens made that crazy tribal. He kind of started the crazy tribal. And then Aurora kept going, and then Julie just finished it. Like she just made sure.
What was the like trigger for this? Did Rick say something?
I think it was that Julie started talking, and then what was it? Julia and Wentworth kind of started going back and forth with their little thing, and then Julia called out like, "Hey, we're good," and then Rick instantly said, "Well, the 7 of us could just work together, considering like we don't." And that was the turning point because then Julia just lost her cool after that.
Yes, that was it. Yes, I have. Julie cries. Wentworth plus Julia make face at each other. Julia admits Rick weird face. So that sounds about right.
Yeah, Alexa, you should stop doing your notes on like LSD over there. Like what the heck is it? You know, smiley face, cat faces. Like
my notes are a disaster. Oh, I said Julia says Aurora is spilling beans with like 7 question marks, and then quote, "I think I'm the poop," which I actually don't think is a quote.
Yeah, the I think I'm the poop was Devens. That was him.
Yeah,
that wasn't. Yeah. So, but what happens with an episode like this is when a half hour of it takes place at Tribal, there's not as much for us to talk about because we watched everything happen. We don't have
right now.
I know we don't have anything to theorize. That's the problem. Like, there's nothing for us to sit here and say, well, who do you think did this or who do you think that? Like, we need to get to our predictions and just kind of predict who we think will go home next week and see what happens next week because this was such a holdover vote.
Yeah, and I don't even know how I'm going to attempt to make my predictions for next week. Because like we just said, like we have no idea what's going on. I honestly the only other like thing that I wrote down is and I guess like I'm guessing I'm gonna put Ron and Julie near the bottom because Ron had a really interesting. Ron and Julie both had a really interesting episode. Like Ron started, it's the night after, and maybe this is just me. This is kind of like Bradley clapping at Donathan. Ron walks up to the group and just like wags Gavin over and is like, "We need to talk." And Gavin's like, "What? Like, why?" I don't know. If someone did that to me, like I wouldn't love that. But then we have Ron crying and like being super apologetic afterwards, and then we have Julie consistently crying, but makes a great point early in the episode where she says, "I don't want to jump from the bottom of one tribe to the bottom of another tribe." Like, totally get that. So I don't know what's going to happen.
I agree. And we got a lot of emotion from Ron tonight. I mean, he was crying pretty much the entire episode. He looked like he was like losing it because I think the problem is like Ron never was going to go against Kama. And so I think he was completely floored when they went against him because he was never going to vote them out. And he was ready to work with them to the very end. And so I think it shocked him that they would vote not him out, but hit one of his closest allies. And he was right when he said to Gavin, like, Eric wasn't going to vote you out. And I think he was 100% right. I do think that Gavin might have been in the bottom half of the alliance, but he was probably fourth. It's Julia who was in trouble, and Aurora and Victoria who needed to make the move, I feel, more than Gavin did. And I think that's why Ron went to Gavin and wanted to talk to Gavin first, because Gavin, I'm pretty sure that Gavin, Eric, Julie, and Ron were supposed to be the final four, based on how Ron reacted to that moment.
Yeah, because even Gavin was like, Eric was my closest ally, and Gavin had stone cold and no problem getting rid of him.
Yeah, I will say this, and I like that he's making the move and that he wants to win because he's got, he wants to have a resume and all of that. You don't vote out your closest ally at final 12 or 11. Yeah. Was it final 11?
And to do it so easily with like a group that you've had known for 3 days, but that's the difference. And this is something that we've been talking about for a while. That's the difference between a group that has gone to 1 billion tribal councils versus a group that has been to 1. It's abundantly clear to watch this now.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, if you're War Dog, like, even if you don't like War Dog, I mean, like, if you're Lauren and Kelly and you don't like War Dog, you've still gone to so many tribals at War Dog, and he's done nothing but tell you the truth.
Hi.
He's done nothing but tell you the truth the entire game. So like, why would you vote out War Dog
now? He's not good in challenges. He's super loyal. That's perfect.
He's awful at challenges. Like, he is so bad. And that's something I wanted to bring up. This is the challenge.
This is the only challenge I've ever done. And this one's hard. I was watching, so remember we talked, if we rewatch the video, which I posted on Twitter, it's an unbearably long video. I'm holding it this way. And for the people listening on iTunes, my wrists are facing to the sky. And then you held it the opposite way, which is definitely more controlled. Like, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. And this challenge, what's interesting about this one, and because we did it, it's easy to like point out, when the ball starts moving, it's not that hard to catch it, and it's not that hard to stop it. This is an easy challenge to recover. And what's cool about it is you can have those big dramatic moments of like, oh no, David's ball is moving all over the place. It's not that hard to get it back, to stop, because it's a heavier ball than you think. Yeah. So when you go to stop, like, you just have to like kind of, like, shock it. I don't even know how you would describe it, but
you have a long trajectory for it to go the opposite way.
Yeah, and it also has to kind of go up the entire time. So you have a long time to stop, and then once you stop, it starts rolling back, but you can kind of slow it down. It's really, this challenge, out of all the ones, like the one where you have the 3 balls on the plate, that one's really hard. The one where you had to spin the thing, that was really difficult because we couldn't get the dang thing going. Yeah. But this one's not that. I'm sure it's obviously hard when you're starving, and it's hard. You have to beat everybody else, so that makes it hard. But it's not that hard to recover in this challenge. So actually being like stone cold, like a lot of the people were, that doesn't even give you an advantage. I mean, how much did Gavin's ball move? And he won this challenge, no problem.
Yeah, the tough part about this challenge, and I don't know, I was in heels when I did it, so obviously this like did not help me. But it's the balance part that's hard, because if you stand on the ground, you can hold that thing for hours. When they're like at that downward angle, and especially once it gets thinner, that's the part that trips you up. Not like absolutely. The wind or anything. Like, the wind's not going to do anything on this challenge.
No, because the ball's super heavy, and yeah, it is. It's like when you're holding it straight up and down, and where the ball starts, it's on the top. It can only roll down from there. Once you get it onto one of the sides, it has to roll up in order to get off the edge. And I think that's what makes it easier, is because now you've got it. It has to, defy the laws of gravity in order to get off. So as long as you have that much momentum going, you can make it stop. There's definitely a learning curve to it, but that's why David, I think, did so well in this challenge, because he'd already done it once. Yeah. And I don't know what he did in this first season. I don't remember what place he got, but I'm sure he did much better this time than he did the first time.
Well, now we know if either of us ever get cast, we'll do well on at least one challenge.
Hopefully, until we get out there and we just start shaking and it fall off.
Yeah, I know. Like, there's the bugs flying everywhere. I like hate when they cut to that, but it's nice actually knowing like the ins and outs of a challenge. I'm about to say, even though it's stick holding ball.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, it's the same as almost every other challenge.
We know so much, everybody. This is very, very intricate stuff over here.
It is. Yeah, but really, like, it's 6:33, and I don't know what else we're supposed to say, because this is we've talked about everything that happened in this episode, because everything happened at Tribal Council. There's nothing to dissect except Julie lost it and Julia went home.
Well, I mean, you are obviously on a time crunch. Mr. Wardog is having a watch party tonight in California, which is going to be awesome that you've already seen this, because now you're going to go in and like kind of know what's going on and like watch everyone react. So we are already on a time crunch. I guess I'm looking at the prop bet. Gavin gets individual immunity and Julie is on the jury. That's all I got. Who is the MVP? Is it like David or Rick?
I think that, MVP is tough this week.
I was thinking about that, and I was like, there's a ton of LVPs, but we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, like so I think the easiest way to go through this one is just kind of eliminate Julie and Aurora, not MVP. No. Victoria, not MVP.
Honestly, Gavin could be MVP. He won immunity and didn't fuck up.
Yeah, he did, but at the same time, it's hard to give MVP to somebody whose like whole plan got blown up tonight. And I know it wasn't his fault.
And yeah, it wasn't his fault, and it wasn't like his specifically.
I guess almost the people that I'm thinking, and Gavin could be fine. There's really no MVP of this episode. I guess the people I'm thinking are Rick, because he stirred the pot enough to get Julia voted out.
Rick's on Vaughn's team. Rick came back.
Yeah, Julia was not going home until Rick opened his mouth tonight. And then the other one, and when she called him a passenger, that was really when the whole mood of the Tribal Council switched.
Yikes, now we're just mad.
Yeah, she was just angry, and she really lost it there. Or I think Kelly Wentworth, because Kelly Wentworth, it was very subtle, but she did a great job of realizing it was going to be her, then talking to everybody and getting everything kind of in motion, not having to play her idol, which is huge, and getting everybody to vote on her side. This is now the second time that we've seen Lauren, Wardog, David, and Wentworth pull from the minority. They're in the minority. Take the comma people who are on the other side and force them to vote with them to vote out the person they wanted to go home, which it happened with Wendy, and now it's happened here. And it's just, I mean, this was what? It was 9-4 going into the merge. Or I guess it was 9-4, because where did Rick really stand? I would say Rick was comma more than he was Lesu. So it was 9-4. And now we're down to really it's 5-5 because Rick has flipped back.
I love it. That's great. This Lesu 4/5, or Brian was saying we should call them the Mana Group. They're great. They are making it happen. It's really impressive.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That might be all I have. I can't believe I'm saying this at 9:30. This is crazy.
I know. I don't know what else to say.
I don't know. Well, we are super excited with our guest for this Sunday. I'm not going to make the pun, but Sunday it might be either tied with Adam as the guest we've had the most, or is about to lap him. But we've had Sunday a lot. We love having her on. She has a bunch of really cool ideas about, like, I remember she had a great like Ghost Island idea when we had her on for Ghost Island. So we'll be talking to her this Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, because now that Game of Thrones is on Sunday nights, we have to readjust our entire schedule. But otherwise, I know we have a lot of questions for our Q&A podcast. We obviously aren't going to be able to do that tonight, so we'll probably just do that next week or after one of our predictions. We'll let you guys know. But otherwise,
don't close it yet. I was going to say Sunday also will be able to give a lot of detail because she played with David, but she's also going to be able to talk about Brett and Chris because The Amazing Race starts next Wednesday.
Yes, Amazing Race starts next Wednesday.
This is the perfect time to have Sunday Burquest on our podcast because she can give us a little intro into The Amazing Race and also talk about David Wright and how he has just overachieved his way through this season.
Yeah. Great call. Yeah, a lot of great content coming from Sunday this week.
Yeah, exactly. She's got her work cut out for her.
Yeah, she's got a lot. But yeah, so The Amazing Race airs directly after Survivor, so obviously we won't be able to watch it live or podcast about it live, but we're thinking Monday nights we'll podcast about The Amazing Race. We'll come up with a schedule for you guys. But there are a lot of like commercial ads for it, and it's looking like it's gonna be pretty cool. So obviously everyone's super excited about that. Yes, That's all I get.
Yeah, I guess the last thing is there's 10 people left in the game. 5 of them are on my fantasy team. Go. Finish.
Go. So we will be live this Sunday with Sunday Burquest at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time. In the meantime, make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and follow us on Instagram. I think we're almost at 600 followers on Instagram. Twitter, we are like climbing up to 1,600, which is super cool. We're on our way to 4,700 subscribers on YouTube, so keep hitting that subscribe button. No clue what our numbers are on iTunes, but I know a lot of you guys like to listen to us on iTunes, so make sure to give us 5 stars and to tell your friends. And yeah, we will be back this Sunday in the morning and / afternoon, and that's all I got.
That's it. All right, we'll see you then.
Bye, y'all. Fastest